Chris, what are you doing home? Angela, my wife of 28 years, asked. She had just stepped through the garage door and saw me sitting at our kitchen table less than 10 feet away. Her body was partially blocking the tall, younger man who was following her into our home. As always, Angela is beautiful. She is a striking 5'9" and a healthy 145 pounds. Her auburn hair is cut over her shoulders. She always dresses professionally for work. Today, she's wearing a white blouse. I noticed that she had an extra button undone. Her black linen skirt highlighted her world-class legs, and the 3-inch heels made the skirt to perfection. I briefly considered Angie's idiotic question and responded just as stupidly, "I live here." The quick flash of irritation that had been increasingly prevalent over the last few weeks surfaced when she spit out, "Of course you live here. What I want to know is why you are home at 3:30 in the afternoon." I jokingly tell anyone who will listen that I have loved Angela since we first met. I had an appointment with 4 of the top people in her company, and Angela was their administrative assistant. She met me in the lobby and escorted me to the senior suite of offices for my meetings. 4 hours later, when she walked me back to the lobby, I took a chance and asked her out for dinner. The rest, as they say, is history. By now, Angie's gentleman friend had scooted around her and was standing at her side. I was half expecting him to smirk, but his very intelligent eyes were showing signs of concern. From the start, things weren't going as planned. "I guess I could ask you the same question, Angie. What are you doing home an hour and a half early?" Angela and I have been joined at the hip since our first date. I'm proud to say that I have devoted every ounce of energy to her and our family. I worked hard and built a small but very successful insurance brokerage firm. With the help of her employer, Angela went to college and in 6 years earned a bachelor's degree. She moved from a support position and into human resources. Eventually, she headed HR in the company's Hartford, Connecticut office. I had loved Angela unconditionally for almost 3 decades. As I sat, looking at the monster she had become over the last number of weeks, I willed myself to be calm. I wanted to break her, just as effectively as she broke me when I discovered she was a lying, cheating woman. When I gave Angie my signature crooked grin, she responded, "We came home early to talk with you." "We?" I asked, while looking Angie directly in the eye. The jerk took the opportunity to introduce himself. He stepped forward, held out his hand, and confidently said, "Mr. Harrington, Chris, I'm Michael Browner. I'm the new attorney at Kellerman & Sons, and I've been working closely with Ang for the last couple of months." While continuing to stare Angie down, I ignored his offered hand. I clenched in the primal instinct to jump up, wrap my hands around his worthless neck, and squeeze until his eyes popped from his skull. Instead, I growled, "I know exactly who and what you are." For the first time, I saw signs of concern in my wife, and then she cringed when I followed up with, "Ang? You threatened to cut the balls off the last person who called you Ang. Why are you putting up with such disrespect in your own home from this jerk?" I was pointing toward the jerk. Angie looked worried and confused. By habit, she is a very careful planner. I was certain that she and the jerk had planned for every possible contingency for this talk. In her mind, every I was dotted and every T was crossed. I was already, in her mind, a compliant, humiliated husband. A quick glance at the jerk made me smile. I was fairly certain that his sphincter muscle was tightening and would soon be clenched in a knot, as tight as my sphincter. A bad show was coming, and it would be worlds different from anything that Angie and her boy toy could imagine. I took 2 or 3 deep cleansing breaths and tried to push the rage and disgust that had been growing into a quiet corner of my heart. "Let's get on with this," I thought to myself. "It's time to throw them off stride again." "Why don't I make 3 drinks?" I offered. "We can talk in the living room." "A glass of wine, please," was Angie's subdued request. When I turned to Jerk, he seemed wary. He responded to my offer by saying, "Angela tells me that you enjoy bourbon and craft beer." I nodded and told him, I do, as I got up from the kitchen table and headed to the bar in our family room. As I left the room, I heard immediate and urgent whispering as they moved in the opposite direction through the kitchen to the living room. A few minutes later, I met them in the living room. They were seated together on the sofa. I handed Angie a glass of her favorite Merlot and the jerk a tulip glass full of amber ale. I took my 2 inches of bourbon and sat in the armchair across from them. After raising my glass in salute, I took a small sip of the burning liquid. After returning the toast, the jerk took a sip of beer. He held the glass in front of him and seemed to study the color and carbonation. He commented, "This is one of the most complex amber ales I've ever had. What is it?" "Pabst Blue Ribbon," I answered. The jerk's eyes flared with anger, and Angie looked confused and offered, "You've said that Pabst Blue Ribbon is worse than donkey urine and the crappiest beer ever made." She was halfway through her comment when she saw me laughing. She exploded, "You're such a jerk. We came home to have a calm talk with you, and you've been nothing but rude and condescending." I smiled and questioned, "I'm jerk, rude, and condescending? I guess we really need to start your talk. I'm sure that I'm about to learn how to have a polite, uplifting, and loving conversation from my ever-faithful wife." Angie cringed and wasn't able to meet my eyes. The jerk took over and began, "Chris, we've come here to discuss—" I interrupted and said to him, "You had it right the first time?" "Excuse me?" He looked confused, as jerks often do. "When you first addressed me, you called me Mr. Harrington, before presumptuously calling me Chris. I greatly prefer— In fact, I insist you call me Mr. Harrington." As his face started to turn red, I finished with a shrug and said, "Or sir." Instead of letting the jerk continue, I turned to Angie and heatedly asked, "What do you want to talk about?" When the jerk looked like he was going to respond, I said, "I'm talking to my wife. Just sit there, drink your complex amber donkey urine, and shut the hell up." Angie was livid and exploded. "Your behavior this afternoon has been disgusting. I want it to stop now." I nodded and seemed to think about her request. I asked, "Do you think my behavior is better or worse than your behavior over the last 5 or 6 weeks?" "What are you talking about?" Angie was half confused and half worried. The jerk seemed to be holding his breath as he waited for my answer. I'll guess he was certain that their carefully crafted plan had gone off the tracks. Looking Angie dead in the eyes, I told her, "I don't know what angers me off more, that you let this worthless little jerk have an affair with you." The stunned look on Angela's face was priceless. Her eyes narrowed, and in a hushed voice she asked the obvious, "You know? It seems like I have more friends at your office than you do. I received an anonymous email from someone at Kellerman's 2 weeks ago. The email warned that you were having an affair and had 3 attachments that showed you on a picnic lunch at Middlewoods Park. The pictures were complete with hand-holding and kissing. I'm sorry that you had to find out that way." Angela was trying to decide how to continue when I jumped in and asked, "So you want a divorce?" "No." She slid to the edge of the couch, leaned forward, rested her elbows on her knees, and passionately said, "I love you and don't want a divorce. What Michael and I are having is a short-term fling. He's new to Connecticut and hasn't made many friends. Once he's settled, I'm sure he'll find a regular girlfriend. I'm sorry, but that doesn't work for me. I signed up for a monogamous relationship with a loving wife. Instead, I've found out that the woman I've devoted my life to is an unfaithful spouse. A divorce works much better for my future plans." Angela begged, "Chris, just stop. I don't want a divorce, and I don't think you do either. This is a one-time fling and nothing more. I'm attracted to Michael, and I wanted a little extra excitement in my life. It's never happened before. It will be over soon and will never happen again. I promise." I took a small sip of my bourbon and sat quietly for a few moments before responding. "First, your promises have no meaning. Everyone in this room knows you're a liar." Angela was about to erupt when I talked over her and said, "And second, Why would I ever believe this is your first affair? For all I know, it's your 51st. Please, you need to stop and think. We've worked together to build our family, and now that Kelly is married and thinking about starting her own family, we can slow down and plan for a wonderful retirement in a few years. My fling with Michael will be long over and forgotten, she begged. I got up and, without asking if anyone wanted another drink, walked to the den and refilled my glass. I was confident that my poor manners were not lost on the two idiots in the living room. They were huddled together and whispering when I returned. "May I say a few things, Mr. Harrington?" the jerk asked. "The floor is yours," was my disgusted reply. He gathered his thoughts before saying, "Angela is right. Our relationship is just a short-term fling. I regret that I led a married woman into an affair. I've never done that before. But we hit it off. As you know, she is a spectacular woman. Your threat of divorce, while understandable in the heat of the moment, will prove unwise over the long term. You've invested decades together. Don't throw it away." Angela was initially worried that the prenuptial agreement her father had you both sign would cause her to lose many of her assets in a divorce if we were caught. I can assure you as a lawyer that a nearly 30-year-old agreement can easily be overturned. Laws change. Legal wording becomes outdated. Any competent attorney will have the document laughed out of court. But even more important than that, you need ironclad proof of infidelity. Other than some mild, innocent public flirting that some of our associates may have seen, I'm confident you don't have the evidence necessary to enforce the agreement. I wondered, as he finished his brilliant legal summation, how my wife had become so stupid. Turning to Angela, I wondered, "I can't understand why you would take legal advice from a corporate attorney who graduated in the bottom quarter of his class from Texas Southern University Law School. Texas Southern is ranked as one of the top 10 worst law schools in the country, year in and year out." "How did you know?" The jerk didn't finish as I answered. "One of my many mottos is know thy enemy." I continued as I turned my attention back to Angela. "What's your plan moving forward, Angie?" She took a few moments to think things through before she told me, "Michael and I are going to spend the weekend together. I'll be staying at his apartment tonight, and in the morning we are leaving for New York City. We'll stay in the city tomorrow and Saturday night, and I'll be home on Sunday." Even though I knew their exact plans, the sheer audacity of my cheating wife's statement tore my heart from my chest. I hoped she could see the crushing sadness in my eyes as I asked, "So not only have you shared your body with this piece of crap, you're also going to share our quarterly getaway weekend with him? We've gone to New York City 4 times a year, every year since we've been married. Memories of all the spectacular sights we've seen together, the award-winning Broadway plays, the concerts and sporting events. You've smashed all of the thousands of heartwarming memories. I don't know what's happened, Angie, but you've become just as low and disgraceful as this pathetic excuse of a man." I was obviously indicating at the jerk. Angela could tell I was devastated and responded accordingly. I didn't hear a single word she said, as the voices in my head were screaming, "End it! End it now!" Looking over at a very concerned jerk, I asked, "Is your wife okay with you having an affair, my wife?" "Christopher, stop! Michael is a widower. His wife died several years ago. He would never cheat on his wife." Even the jerk had the decency to cringe at my wife's last statement. I smirked and said to Angela, "Unlike you." I continued immediately and asked, "Is that true? You're widowed?" He quickly looked back and forth between Angie and me and hesitantly said, "Yes." I reached down and pulled a manila folder from the backpack sitting on the floor next to my chair. I opened the folder, scanned the first page, and read, "Doctor Cynthia Browner, Emergency Department Surgeon, Ascension St. John's Hospital, Detroit, husband Michael, daughters Katie, 11, and Lacey, 9. Dr. Browner has resigned for her current position effective June 22nd and will be moving to the Hartford, Connecticut area to join her husband immediately after her children get out of school. She will be working in a similar position at St. Francis Hospital and Medical Center in Hartford. If I wasn't so grossly unhappy about my marriage, I would have laughed hysterically at the look on Angela's face. "You lied to me?" she wanted to know. I couldn't help it. I did laugh. "Can you imagine?" I bellowed. "A cheat and a liar lies to a cheat and a liar. What's this world coming to?" Michael reached out and cupped Angela's hand. Just before I could shout, "Get your hands off my wife," I realized I just didn't care. Baby, I'm sorry. I did lie. I couldn't help it. You are so beautiful. I wanted you and needed you, and I lied, so I could have you." He stood while still holding her hand. "Let's go back to my place and talk. We'll go to New York tomorrow and have a great weekend. When we get back, we'll still have 3 weeks until my family arrives. At that point, you can be a full-time wife and I'll be a full-time husband and father." Angela considered her options for a few moments before standing. She took the jerk's hand and turned toward me. "After this weekend, I promise to give up Michael completely. I'll come home on Sunday and I'll be the same loving wife I've always been." Angie and I stared at each other for a while. I wondered if she could hear my already crushed heart continuing to break. "I've sat here somewhat politely while you both had the opportunity to tell me about your fling and how in the long term it won't affect my relationship with Angie. I'd like to ask that you both sit down and give me a similar 30 minutes of time to lay out the changes I see happening." They looked back and forth between each other and me, trying to silently decide what to do. I pushed the issue and said, "The least you can do is give me 30 minutes of your time." Reluctantly, they sat. "I've set up several Zoom meetings for us," I told them as I pointed the remote at the TV and pressed a few buttons. I'd become an expert at arranging Zoom online meetings during the COVID-19 pandemic. When the TV lit up, I said, "Peter, Lou, can you hear me?" I was talking to the two faces on the screen. "We can, Chris," Peter answered. I continued. "Angie, you obviously know our family attorney, Peter. I'd like to introduce you to his partner and my new divorce attorney, Lou Baird. Gentlemen, I'd like to also introduce you to corporate attorney extraordinaire Michael Browner." Angie and the jerk were stunned as I finished with, "Gentlemen, you have the floor." Lou immediately started in a no-nonsense manner. "Mrs. Harrington, I am representing your husband in your upcoming divorce. Papers were filed with the court earlier this afternoon. I'd greatly appreciate it if you would retain an attorney and make arrangements to officially be served. I'll give you until the end of the day on Monday. If I haven't heard from your attorney, we will hire a process server. We have filed for divorce using infidelity as the cause. We have private investigators report that documents in great detail using audio, visual, and telecommunication proof your affair with Mr. Browner." As Lou was finishing his last statement, I tossed a second manila folder onto the coffee table in front of Angie. The loud slap made both jump. "It's a copy of our divorce petition, including the private investigator report," I told the stunned couple. While the jerk reached for the folder, Angie looked back to the screen. "We will be insisting that the prenuptial agreement is fully enforced. I know that you are aware that every 2 years all of your family's business and personal legal matters are reviewed. As part of that review, the prenuptial agreement has been revised so as to stay within the current state legal guidelines. As we have your signed and notarized signature for every update over the last 28 years, I am 100% confident that the prenuptial agreement is fully enforceable. Per a vote last night by the Board of Directors of Harrington Brokerage, you are relieved of all corporate responsibilities, and you are no longer associated with Mr. Harrington's firm in any way. You will have 7 days to return your car to the company. Your company credit cards have been paid off and canceled. Your cell phone will be canceled in 7 days. Your membership to Cedar Mountain Country Club and LA Fitness is canceled. We have also paid off and canceled the 3 joint credit cards you have shared with my client. We have frozen your joint savings, checking, and retirement funds. Per the prenuptial agreement, we expect an 80-by-20 split of the cash and near-cash assets in Mr. Harrington's favor. Per the agreement, Mr. Harrington will retain your house free and clear. We have asked the court to expedite your eviction. As you have a home that you have been sharing on occasion with Mr. Browner, we will argue that it is easier for you to move. We are asking the court to give Mr. Harrington full possession of the property immediately and give you 30 days to remove your personal property from the house. There will be no alimony, and obviously child support isn't relevant. There are many smaller claims that my client has made. Your attorney can explain them to you. Chris? Have I missed anything? My attorney asked. You've hit all the highlights, Lou. Thanks. The TV screen immediately went black. Just as quickly, Angie jumped to her feet and screamed, "Wait!" She looked at me and said, "Get them back. I have questions." I laughed and said, "That's not how it works, Angie. You'll need to hire your own lawyer to get your answers." "You jerk," Angie growled. "I'm going to destroy you." With a smirk, I looked at her partner in crime and asked, "Hey, jerk! What does your near-genius legal mind tell you is this woman destroying me in the divorce?" His silence had Angela sink back into the couch and curl around herself. I'll guess my smile was ear to ear. I simply held up the TV remote and waved it at her before pointing it at the TV. As the second Zoom meeting started, I said, "Jake, can you hear me?" "Hi, Chris. I've got a conference call that I need to jump on, so this will be quick. Browner, you are fired, effective immediately. Your personal items are being removed from your office and will be in a box in the lobby. If they aren't claimed within 24 hours, they will be thrown out. You will not be receiving a recommendation." Angela. I could hear her boss slow down and sigh. I looked over at Angie and saw her shaking. She was scared to death. "I can't tell you how disappointed I am. Your behavior as a senior member of my staff is inexcusable. That being said, 29 years of exemplary service must be taken into account. Your position in Hartford has been eliminated. I'm offering you the same position at our facility in Albany, New York. You have a week to decide if you'll take the transfer and 30 days to move to Albany." The screen went blank again as Angie cried into her hands and the jerk slouched back into the couch. I was purposely smirking at the jerk. When he saw me, his rage started to build. He was younger, bigger, and I'll guess stronger. Unfortunately for him, he was as stupid as a bag of rocks. As the jerk was ready to explode, I once again waved the remote, pointed it toward the TV, and pressed a button. The screen lit up and I asked, "Doctor? Browner? Can you hear me?" The jerk and Angie sat in stunned silence. They were white as ghosts, and their mouths were hanging open. The face of a beautiful blonde filled the screen. She said, "I've asked you to call me Cynthia." "Sorry, Cynthia, the floor is yours," I answered. "Michael, I've filed for divorce. Expect to be served over the next few days. The kids and I will remain in Michigan. I've been able to keep my current position at the hospital." The jerk begged, "Cynthia, please!" "We can work this out. It was just a fling." The face on the screen looked disgusted. "I've been doing some checking since Chris contacted me. This is the third job you've lost because you couldn't keep pants on. After I received the private investigator report, I contacted him and asked him to do some additional digging." Everyone was staring intently at the screen when Cynthia continued. "Mrs. Harrington, do you know Alice Packer, Joy Likely, Tori Jones, Candy Phillips?" When Angie didn't answer, Cynthia laughed and said, "I really don't expect an answer. The question was rhetorical. I know they are all associates of yours. Did you know Michael had flings with each of them? Can you imagine? You were just one of his many flings. Tell me where to send your crap, Michael. You're not welcome at my house." When the screen faded to black again, the jerk yelled, "I'm going to kill you." He struggled to his feet as I slipped my Colt .45 from between the chair cushion and pointed the monster at him. He looked like he was going to vomit, which was exactly the look I wanted. "You've got two choices. You can leave or you can sit down and shut the hell up. I don't care what you do, but if you come at me, I'm going to shoot your left ball off." I'm not sure if I was completely happy that he sat back down, but was grateful that I'd be able to have my last planned Zoom meeting. I looked over at Angie. She was pale. Her cheeks were streaked with tears, and mascara was smudged around her eyes. She looked awful. "I've been seeing a counselor for the last 2 weeks." Angie groaned and cried into her hands. "It's kind of funny. You cheat, lie, and share your bed with this jerk, and I'm the one that needs a mental health expert." I laughed and said, "How messed up is that?" A few moments later, I told Angela. After I told Dr. Waters our story, she asked me a question that's helped me a great deal. She asked, "Do you understand the old saying, 'Love is blind'?" When she asked the question, it was like a light going on in a dark room. "I loved you so much that I would have never known you were a cheating woman, if not for the anonymous email. My love was so strong that it overlooked your warts. Hell, in my eyes, you didn't have warts. I hope you know, you'll never find anyone who will love you as much as I did." Angie continued to cry and rock back and forth on the couch. "I'm going to continue seeing Dr. Waters. I think it's important to have someone to trust with your innermost thoughts and feelings, especially after such a devastating event. I would have never imagined it was possible for someone I loved so much could humiliate and disrespect me to such a degree. But the good news is, I'll get over the hurt and humiliation, just like I will get over you." I told Dr. Waters about my plan for today. She isn't a big fan of revenge, but thought the first 3 Zoom meetings were okay. She thought that you deserved some payback. She did try to talk me out of our next Zoom meeting. She thought that the pain it would cause me might take me back a few steps in my personal recovery. I've thought about it and will admit that Dr. Wilson is probably right. The next Zoom meeting is going to do me more harm than good. But I don't care. This next meeting will hurt me, but it will cripple you. As I held up the remote for the 4th time and waved it at Angie, she shrunk back into the couch in a panic. I pointed it at the TV and pushed the button. All eyes were riveted to the screen, and when the face appeared, Angie groaned. "Oh no, please God, oh no!" "I love you, Daddy," said my daughter Kelly. "I love you too, sweetheart." "Why?" Angie shrieked. "How could you possibly be this awful to me?" "I heard it all, Mom. I've heard every word you and your boyfriend have said over the last hour. I've heard what you've done and what you plan to do. You disgust me, Mom." "Sweetheart, please. This is a very complicated situation. You're too young to understand," she begged. It took Angela's breath away when Kelly responded, "Go to hell, Mom. I'm 26 years old, a happily married woman. Your situation isn't complicated. It's grotesque on one hand and pitiful on the other. I don't know what's changed, but you are selfish and totally self-absorbed." Angela was breathing deeply as she begged, "Kelly, baby, I've been so lonely since you moved away. It was like I was living in a fog. I missed you so much." Kelly's face on the screen looked perplexed. "So what you're saying, Mom, is that it's my fault you've become a liar, cheat, crushed dad and are going to get divorced?" "No, that's not what I'm saying, and you know it." "It doesn't matter, Mom. I think we all need a break from you." "Kelly!" Angela shouted. "I'll come to Boston this weekend and we can talk. I'm so sorry this has happened. I need to be with my baby girl." "That's not going to work, Mom, for 2 reasons. First, you'll be in New York with your worthless, unemployed, newly divorced boyfriend." "I'm not going to New York," Angela insisted. "And second, Scott and I have planned a small private celebration for our closest family and friends. We've rented a venue closer to Cape Cod." "Baby? Oh, baby, what are you celebrating?" Angela asked. "Since you aren't invited, I'll tell you. I'm 3 months pregnant and will be having a baby girl in February." "Kellyanne, I'm your mother and I insist that you invite me," she begged. "That's not going to happen, Mom. I want my special party to be filled with love and happiness and not the lying, cheating, and disrespect that is consuming so much of your current life. Goodbye, Mom." For the 4th time, the screen went blank. As Angela sat and cried, I got to my feet and tucked my pistol into the back of my pants. I'm going out for dinner and will be back in 2 hours. Looking at Angela, I said, please pack clothes and other essentials. You won't be allowed back into the house until the court responds to my divorce petition. I'm told that will take a week. Looking at the jerk, I said, you've seen what I am capable of doing. I'm giving you 3 days to move out of the state. If you are still here on Monday, I'll have you crippled in a much more literal sense. After pulling open the front door, I looked back at the utterly defeated cheaters and said, enjoy your weekend in New York. It's supposed to be beautiful both days. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.